Hey guys, welcome back. So today we are continuing our Doodle week, but we're going to bring it into the digital world a little bit. I'm doing this because a lot of my students were able to take home some art kits the day before the stay-at-home orders were put into place. But some of you guys, maybe your paints aren't working anymore or you weren't there that day, and I want to give you guys another option. So if you don't have paints at home, or maybe you just want to use something different, I'm going to show you guys how to do any of the future assignments with a digital app called Adobe Fresco. And when I show you guys this app, I'm going to show you that there's ways that you can use brushes. There are watercolor brushes, there are oil paint brushes, and there are vector brushes, all within the Adobe application. And so as I continue with my lessons, I might use watercolor in a video, but I want you to feel free to use the digital apps as well. So any lesson, if you don't have the materials, you can use this app that I'm going to show you today called Adobe Fresco. It's a really cool app. I like it the best because I think it gives us a lot of different options. And if you're used to working with Adobe programs, then it should kind of be very simple to you. So let's take a look and I will navigate you through it. And at the end today, I just want you to play around with this app and show me just a couple of free drawings, free doodles. You can do an assignment from last week, or you can do something free on your own. I just want you to get situated with this app so that you know how to use it, and if you want to use it, it's available to you. All right, guys, so here we go. Let's get to it. So your first step is to sign in with your Google account. This is going to get you signed right into any Adobe programs that you find on your iPad. So here we are in the beginning screen, and I'm going to show you underneath Learn, you can click in and find even additional tutorials after this. But I want to show you this particular cat drawing because I think it really goes into a good understanding of these layers that are on the right side here. This works just like most Adobe programs. We've got layers, and when you click into them, you're going to be able to see that there are much more options here. You can hide a layer, so you see that the layer that will all of the face images of this cat were drawn disappear when I click hide. You could see again, that's the body. When I click to hide it, it shuts off. This is super helpful when you get to drawing more complicated images. So there's so many things you can do. You can add layers here, you can delete layers here, you can duplicate a layer. And all of this is a little bit more when we get into more complex illustrations in Adobe Fresco. But for right now, I think this is important to understand that these layers are the order of the image that you see. You draw the facial images on top of the body. Right now I'm going to show you how you can hide transparency as well over here in your layers. So we're going to take a look at the goldfish here. So I click the goldfish, and over up on the right side of this, we're going to work with the transparency, and we're going to bring the opacity down. So when it's full opacity, you see the full image. Now look at how when I bring it down, the little goldfish starts to disappear. This is going to be super helpful with you when you're placing objects in your drawings, but just gives you a brief understanding of what the layers do here. So we're going to leave this Discover area. You can also watch this for tutorials and inspiration for other artists. That's for you guys to play around with. But what we're going to do is get started and start working with different kinds of brushes. So I'm going to use the current screen size to get started here. And our first brush is a pixel brush. So just kind of basic brushes to get started with drawing. I don't use these as much. I'm going to use the other two brushes a little bit more, but again, these give you some basic understanding of like making some marks. Here's the color wheel where we change the color of your brush. So you can see I'm going to click a green, and then I change the value of that green. Do I want it to be a bright green or a dark green? And there I'm changing the opacity so it could be like a light mark. So you can see I'm making these light marks with my brush first. I'm kind of going back and forth between showing my mouse and not showing my mouse. So you can see here are some darker strokes that I'm making with the pixel brushes. So basic drawing. Now, when you double click with 2 fingers on your screen, that's a shortcut to an undo. Now, if I double click with 3 fingers on the screen, I'm going to bring those brushes back. So 2 fingers for undo, 3 fingers for redo. Those are shortcuts for when you're drawing. So here are my favorite brushes, live brushes. And underneath there, I can click watercolor brushes. This is where you're going to be able to do the things that I do with watercolor, but on your screen. So I'm choosing a green here. Now you can see that the brush starts to spread out just like watercolor actually does. So I'm using some green. I'm going to mix some blue and do it right next to it. Now look, the blue starts to blend in with the green, just the way that real paint works. This is why I really love this program. I haven't seen many programs who allow us to do that. So over on the left side, you can adjust the flow, which adjusts how your mark is made when you create more of like a stroke line. But now I'm also going to show you how you change the water flow. So if I bring that all the way down and I'm making some marks with this blue, now I'm going to go and I'm going to switch the color up to a green and I'm putting it right next to it. You see that it's not blending as much as it did before. Now I'm going to move that water flow up again, switch my color up to a red, more pink. And now I'm doing it, and now that pink is flowing way more into the green. This allows us to make some really interesting textures with our drawings. Now I'm going to move on to oil paints. Now you guys have used oil paints in my class, and you know it doesn't work like watercolor does, and we can't mix oil paint and watercolor in real life, but in this program you can. So here I am. I'm kind of messing around with the different oil paint brushes to see which ones I want to use, but it's a much more bold mark. Now I'm taking my little custom mouse and putting it away so that I can play around with this a little bit more. So here I am messing with the size of my brush stroke. I'm making it so I can see this mark fully. Now I've made a blue mark over on the left and the right side. Now you can see how it's picking up the colors from underneath. Oil paint brushes are perfect if you want to work with blending. This is something I haven't seen other programs use. Now I started with the green, but as it moves through the blue, it picks up the blue, picks up the pink, and it makes the mark. Now watch, I pull that down over on the side. The mixing is down. Now the green is a little bit, it's mixing way less than the first mark. It's still mixing a little bit because it's the oil paint. It's going to mix, but it's mixing way less. That's why I really love those brushes. Now when we go over to the vector brushes, these are going to be scalable marks, meaning if we print it small or big, it won't have any pixelation to it, just like in our Adobe Draw. So here we are, we're working with smoothing the sides of my pixel brush. If you like Adobe Draw, you're going to love these. You can draw some solid lines with these brushes. So I just wrote Miss Rich here, but you can see on the right side of your screen now, I'm adding my little marker so you could see where I'm going with this. On the right side of the screen, anything you make with these pixel brushes is going to create a new layer for you. So I made that disappear so you could see that everything I wrote disappears with that layer. So here's our eraser, and we can go through and use an eraser tool, but right here you see this little white circle that shows up every time we use a brush. This is a shortcut, okay? I'm turning off my little gesture right now. And what happens is when I hold on to that little white circle and I use another finger to use the brush, it turns, while I'm using my pixel, into an eraser. Okay, so while you're using your your vector brush, when you hold onto the white circle, it erases. Now, if I use a watercolor brush, this tool is going to work differently. So I'm using my watercolor. And now when I use that white brush, it's going to turn it into pure water and let us mix some things. I got to get rid of some of the stuff on the screen, so I'm going to delete all of those brushes that I used before so we can really understand what this white circle does. So here I am, I'm going to make some red marks, and I'm going to make some yellow marks. And now I'm going to use that white circle. I hold it down with one finger, and with another finger I'm going over in between. What it does is it allows there to be pure water. So just like in real life, when you mix with just water, you're able to blend. Right now I'm showing you the transform tool, which is on the left side. That allows us to change the size. Now I'm going to show you how these selection tools work. So I select a shape. I can move that shape. I can transform that shape. This gets really fun when you start cutting and pasting different layers of images. The fill your bucket tool is going to work when you have a solid shape. So I'm going to just take a solid fill and paint bucket that whole little shape I have there. That doesn't work unless you have an enclosed shape. Here's our little eyedropper tool. This helps you if you ever lose a color and want to find that color again. And over here you get to see and place where you can add pictures into your drawing if you want to kind of work with illustrating somebody or maybe drawing a portrait. You could bring the portrait in and draw on top of your image. So you can see it brings in your camera. So just the way you would import into any other app, you can import a picture that way. So this is where you're going to save. For me, my students, you're going to go into that little share button and click quick export. And from there, you just save the image into your iPad and turn it into this different seesaw activity that relates to whatever it is that you're making. Okay? All of your work ends up getting saved into your cloud. And I'm going to show you where those documents are. So there's all of our backup. Even when I clicked that little cat, it shows up there. So look, if you really worked a lot with Adobe Draw, this should import some of your best work from there. So these are some other illustrations that I've made. This is what you're going to be working on. I want you to create some illustrations using the different brushes and the different colors. Switch up your colors and turn them into me. So here's some examples, just to get you guys to understand how Adobe Fresco works. So have fun with it, play with these tools, mix some colors around, and get yourself familiar with it. This is something you can use whenever you don't have the materials at home. Open up Adobe Fresco and it opens up a whole bunch of more possibilities for you.